Donald Trump's illegal deportation plan has been the most indefensible aspect of his presidency for even the most loyal MAGA diehards. And of course, we know Republicans in Congress and Republicans at large are always willing to fall in line with Donald Trump, whether it's out of fear, their spinelessness, or hopes of political gain. The cult will always defend what Trump says and does, which is why it was so shocking to see a top Senate Republican call out Donald Trump for his illegal deportation of Abrego Garcia live on air in a brutal takedown that clearly has Trump upset. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into this call out from a Republican senator who I am very surprised to see calling out Donald Trump, I want to hear from a Democratic congressman who I think made the most important point of why all these call-outs are happening.
Before we get into the midterms, I want to get your take about the news of the day on this case involving Kilmer Abrego Garcia. Of course, he was the one who was deported to El Salvador. The administration said it was a mistake. The administration alleges he's a member of MS-13. His attorney denies that. And while an immigration judge in 2019 said he should not be deported, he did enter the U.S. illegally in 2011. I want you to listen first to what Gavin Newsom said about this case.
This is the distraction of the day, the art of distraction. It's exactly the debate they want, because they don't want this debate on the tariffs. They don't want to be accountable to the markets today. They want to have this conversation. Don't get distracted by distractions.
Is he right? Is this a distraction you guys are distracted by?
Listen, I wouldn't use the word distraction, because this is a real man with a family. He matters. You know, Mr. Garcia matters as an individual, as a human being. But what's more is that this larger issue of denial and trying to distort the truth. The truth is there was no due process in this case. The truth is the Trump administration has no evidence that this person is a criminal, that he's involved in any gang activity. They continue to double down because what they are trying to do is distort the truth over and over. You know, their philosophy is you tell a lie over and over and over again until it becomes true. That is right out of an autocratic playbook. That is what makes this so dangerous. So Mr. Abrego Garcia matters a lot, and we should try to get him back, do everything possible. But we also need to be focused on the fact that this administration is trying to lie and bend the truth so people lose sight of what reality actually is.
So I talked about this in a previous video, but I couldn't disagree with Gavin Newsom more. This is not a distraction. This is a violation of the Constitution. This is a violation of the due process this man deserves. And this is a violation of Abrego Garcia's human rights. That's what's happening right now. This isn't Donald Trump talking about running for a third term. And of course, that would be a violation of our Constitution as well. But this isn't something shiny that MAGA is trying to throw in front of us so we talk about something different. This is an illegal action we have to stop, or any number of us are next. Donald Trump always talks about Gavin Newsom as a political enemy. You'd think that would make him want to push back against attacks on his political enemies more, right? It's not a distraction. This is something we have to talk about. And I think Jason Crow hit it right on the head that this is a winning political issue because it's the right thing to do. As AOC always says, and I repeat, Donald Trump's deportation plan isn't popular. We're just not working hard enough to make it unpopular. And Trump clearly realizes that because he melted down on Truth Social. So before we get into that Republican senator, I want to see the little meltdown he had this morning. Trump wrote on Truth Social, and I'm not going to read it all because it is so ridiculous. Happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to bring murderers, drug dealers, dangerous prisoners, and mentally ill and well-known MS-13 gang members and wife beaters back into the country. Happy Easter also to the weak and ineffective judges and law enforcement officials who are allowing this sinister attack on our nation to continue, an attack so violent that it will never be forgotten. Sleepy Joe Biden purposefully allowed millions of criminals to enter our country totally unvetted and unchecked through an open borders policy that will go down in history as the single most calamitous act ever perpetrated upon America. Now, I don't think this post was necessarily written by Donald Trump, even though it does follow a long line of tradition of him making these happy, whatever, joyous this, celebrate holiday, except for the radical left lunatics. but I don't think he knows how to spell or write or understand most of those words. So I'm not sure if it was his doing, but clearly upset that he's getting pushback for his illegal deportation plan, which he's not just getting from Democrats, but members of his own party, as we see right here.
Look, this was a screw-up, in my opinion. The administration won't admit it, but this was a screw-up. Mr. Garcia was not supposed to be sent to El Salvador. He was sent to El Salvador. The Democrats say, look, you know, we told you Trump is a threat to democracy. This is going to happen every other Thursday afternoon. I don't see any pattern here. I mean, you know, someday pigs may fly, but I doubt it.
Senator, this is notable because you are saying, in your words, this is a screw-up. I mean, are you concerned that more mistakes could happen?
Well, sure. None of us want mistakes. Mistakes bad. Doing it right, good.
Yeah.
But it was a screw-up, and I understand why the administration is bowed up and said we won't admit it's a mistake, because if they do, they'll have their throats torn out.
Yeah.
A Republican senator calling what Donald Trump did a screw-up, blatantly calling him out, is shocking. I would like it to go a little farther than screw up. I guess we can only ask so much of Republicans here. It was more than a screw up. This was a purposeful attack on due process, on our Constitution, because, as I always say, I think the Trump administration believes they can violate our Constitution on these particular issues with the expectation that some Democrats won't want to speak out. We just saw that from Gavin Newsom, which is why it is so important we make sure that we do. We don't let them think that they can violate our Constitution on issues that might be perceived as a little difficult for Democrats to talk about. We cannot allow that to happen. We have to be fighting back all the time. As Senator Van Hollen said, this is not about defending the individual, his character, his background. What this is about is defending due process. That is what we have to focus on. And I promise you, that's pretty popular. I don't think the vast majority of people in this country are okay with Donald Trump on his own whims deciding who gets deported to El Salvador. Of course not. And Jamie Raskin talked more about that in this clip right here.
Well, it's a total inversion of the facts of the situation. Justice Alito seems to think that due process applies to government officials. Due process applies to people who are the subjects of governmental coercion. So he summons up all of his outrage to say, how dare they do this to the government in the middle of the night? How dare they move so quickly to protect people from being forcibly expelled from the country and banished? And so that is a completely upside down concept based on what's going on in the country. And I'm glad that his extremism is being isolated, at least right now, on the Supreme Court, and the majority of the court, including Kavanaugh, including Gorsuch, along with the Chief Justice and the three liberals and Amy Coney Barrett, are standing up for due process, which is the barrier between the freedoms and rights of the people and then arbitrary power by the government.
That's such a good reminder of due process and who it's supposed to be for, which I think they're completely missing, as well as the 7-2 decision, which is important to remind people of, because that's significant. A lot happened with the Supreme Court this week. I mean, this is a different case than the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, but after the Supreme Court upheld the district's court order that the administration facilitate his return to the United States, the White House, particularly Stephen Miller, tried to spin it by falsely claiming that the Supreme Court's order upholding the lower court's ruling was unlawful. He claimed they won, too. I'm curious if you think, because they're human beings, these justices, if you think that impacted the decision to do this order, or the specificity, I should say, of this order overnight on Friday night.
Well, they must be experiencing some of the vertigo and disorientation of the rest of the country as the Trump administration tramples the rights and freedoms of the people, eviscerates due process, and then lies about what's happening. So I think that's why you're seeing a movement of the justices to rally behind due process and the idea that everybody gets a fair hearing. You get to see what the evidence is against you. You get to be represented. You get to state your case. You get to explain why all of this is an administrative error, as it was, in the Abrego Garcia case. But I loved your opening, Jen, because people are standing up everywhere, right? So in higher education, which was quaking before, now Harvard University, the oldest college in the country going back to 1636, stands up and says, no, you're not going to take over our university. You've got law firms like Wilmer Hale and Jenner and Block saying, no, we know why we're lawyers and we're going to stand up for the rule of law. You've got millions of people who've already participated in protests across the country in every state, in blue districts and red districts and purple districts, saying, no, we're going to stand up for the Constitution, which is far bigger than any particular politician or administration.
No question about it. And this week was full of that, too, which is why we wanted to start the show that way. The other point, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, I made, is that there are repercussions to not standing up. I mean, universities that have not stood up, they've been informed that now the Trump administration thinks they're going to be involved in some of their programming and some of what they do as a school. The law firms have been told, or there's reporting that they've been told that they're going to decide what pro bono clients that they have to take on. Obviously, we've seen what's happened with the media. What do you think for people out there, whether it's institutions or universities or individuals who feel like, I need to capitulate right now because I'm going to solve this problem and put it behind me? What do you wish they would know, knowing how Trump operates as you do?
Well, we learned from the last century that you cannot appease fascists and authoritarians. There is no safety in appeasement. And that means you've got to feel the fear, which they try to promote through their cruelty. Their cruelty serves the function of imposing a regime of terror on society. But the reason that Franklin Roosevelt said there's nothing to fear but fear itself is because he knew that people had to feel afraid, but then keep going. And that's what courage is. Courage is experiencing the fear, but then refusing to back down and moving forward. And that's what's happening in every sector of American society now, including, by the way, the foundations. There was a very powerful statement made by John Palfrey from the MacArthur Foundation. These not-for-profits are going to have to stand up to defend us, for example, in the healthcare field, where the Trump regime is trying to pull the plug on lots of things, including vaccination, of course, but lots of different kinds of public health efforts. And Mr. Palfrey is basically saying now is the time for the foundations to step into the breach, to use their resources to address all of these huge catastrophic problems being unleashed on our society.
We know what is right and what is wrong. And if we do not call it out, we are on the wrong side of this. Senator Van Hollen understands that, Jamie Raskin understands that, and we need more Democrats to understand that and act with the same bravery that they have been. And we are going to continue to do that on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.